welcome to another video. This is going to be a long one, but a very useful one. We're going to be looking at the 6 different ways to use the ing form and some lovely phrasal verbs as well. So let's get started. Usually I just scroll through news sites like Reuters, The Times, The Guardian, and I skim their headlines and I glance at their photos of the day. Now, I think this is a really cute photo, but today we're going to have a look at a similar one. But because I assume you don't often have cause to talk about monkeys, we're going to have a look at more daily life examples and examples in a business context. And of course, we're going to level up your vocabulary throughout. So let's dive in. Communication, information, conversation, ambition, dedication, determination, education, graduation, fascination. Now, when you look at a word that ends in shun, you know that it's a noun. I hope. If you didn't know that, now you know. That suffix indicates that it is a noun. And if you see a word like precariously, pretentiously, melodramatically, you should know that it is an adverb. You might not know the exact meaning of the word, but you should know that that suffix ly indicates that it is an adverb. So what about the word walking? I'm going to read 10 sentences. As you listen, I'd like you to focus on that word walking. What part of speech is it? Is it a noun? Is it a verb? Is it an adjective? Is it an adverb? What word form is it? And do you know how it is being used? I'm going to go quite quickly, so if you need to pause the video to have some extra time to think, that's a good idea. Okay, let's start off with a short one, and remember, you're focusing on the word walking. What part of speech is it, and how is it being used? Number 1, Bob is walking. Number 2, walking is a good form of exercise. Number 3, I plan to go on a walking tour of Paris when I visit next month. Number 4, I was walking back from the supermarket when I realized I had left my bank card in the self-service checkout machine, so I had to walk all the way back to collect it. Number 5, as I was sitting at a cafe, I smiled at a woman walking by with her dog. Number 6, we had been walking round in circles for almost an hour when we finally found the souvenir shop that had been recommended to us. Number 7, Carla bought a walking stick to help her elderly grandfather get about a bit more easily. Number 8, I'm keen on walking as a way of staying active. Number 9, the doctor suggested walking as it is low impact and doesn't require any specialized equipment. And the last one, the postman, walking up to the door, suddenly noticed the large dog dozing on the front porch. Okay, hopefully you have got an idea of what those different walking words are. Are they nouns? Are they verbs? Are they adjectives? Are they adverbs? How are they being used? But I'm going to be really horrible and say I'm not going to give you the answers until later. So keep watching, or if you're really impatient, you can skip to that chapter and come back. But if you stay with me, we're going to look at all 6 different uses of this ing form. Remember what I always say, copy the structure from the question in your answer. This is going to give you extra practice with grammatical sentence structures, whether you realize it or not. So my first questions are, What is the man doing? And what are the monkeys doing? Okay, this was not a trick question. It was nice and easy. And hopefully you have something like, the man is giving some monkeys food to eat. Or the man is giving some monkeys a bite to eat. A little bit more informal. Or the man is giving food to some monkeys. Same idea, we've just reorganized the different prepositional structures. Or the man is feeding monkeys some bread. It kind of looks like bread. I'm going to call it bread for this video. And then what about the monkeys? You might have said the monkeys are reaching out for some food, or the monkeys are taking some food from the man. Doesn't really matter what exact sentence you've used, as long as you have something like that. Now, first of all, I'd like you to notice that I used the definite article the man. And the reason I did this is because we are all looking at the same photo, and we can clearly see that there is one man, the man. We can be specific about this. The sun, the moon, the man in the photo. And the same thing for monkeys. So although there's more than one monkey, we are specifically talking about these monkeys in this photo that we are all looking at. So we're being specific, and that's why we're saying the. It's not wrong to say a man, but it's a little bit confusing. I'm going to stop and think, well, why did you decide to change the article from what I used in my question? Do you have lots of photos that you're looking at? I mean, it's just going to confuse me for no reason. So keep your lives as easy as possible. Copy the structures, the vocabulary from the question into your answer. Okay, so you've had lots of examples already of ing, and you're probably pretty sure that we are using this as a verb. It's a verb in the continuous form, so we're focusing on a long action or an action that was in progress at a specific point in time. Great. Now it's question time. Now don't worry, the questions are not difficult, but I do want you to answer in full sentences. For example, what are you doing now? What are you doing? I'm recording a class. What about you? Now, hopefully you're saying something like, I'm listening to you, I'm paying attention, something like that. Okay. Number 2, what were you doing at 2 a.m.? What were you doing at 2 a.m.? I don't know about you, but I was sleeping. Number 3, what will you be doing at 7 p.m. tomorrow? What will you be doing at 7 p.m. tomorrow? I think I've got a class scheduled then, so I'll be teaching at that time. Now, in my Mother's Day grammar video, I talked about the idea of cohesion as the way of linking your ideas. So here is a great example of that. I did not repeat at 7 p.m. tomorrow, or tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock, or 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. No, instead I said then and at that time. So it's clearly referring back to the time from the question. So what will you be doing at 7 p.m. tomorrow? And finally, how long have you been studying English? How long have you been studying English? So we use this ing form for all our continuous tenses. The present, the past, the future, all of our perfect tenses in the continuous. You cannot avoid the ing form if you want to emphasize a long action. Remember that. Okay, it's time to make things a little bit more difficult and level up your vocabulary. This time with phrasal verbs. So take a look. One of the monkeys is holding a piece of bread. The man is holding out a piece of bread. So what's the difference between hold and hold out? Consider what's happening. Take a look at the photo. Think about what we just said a moment ago. The man is giving food to the monkeys. So when you hold something out for someone, I'm holding it in my hand, but I am offering it to you. Here's a pencil. So I will hold it out to you because I know you need a pencil. I'm offering it to you. Now, before you say, "Aw, thanks, Anisa, we love learning phrasal verbs," I want you to be aware of how tricky phrasal verbs can really be. So, a person holds out food. Great. But can we say the food holds out? Is that right? Is that wrong? What do you think? Now, we often use this when we're talking about a supply of food, and we want that supply of food to last for a certain time. So, I cannot get to the supermarket until Wednesday, so I hope the milk holds out until I can get to the shop on Wednesday. I want the milk to last for that period of time. It doesn't have to be food. Imagine if you're watching a movie set in space and there's a disaster on the spaceship and they're waiting to be rescued and they say, "I hope the oxygen holds out." So now you've got that supply of oxygen that you want to last. But phrasal verbs are still not that simple. So we have to hold something out for someone is I'm offering it to you. If something holds out, you want it to last. What about I really want to buy a new pair of boots, but I'm holding out for a sale? What does that mean? I'm not offering a sale. I don't want a sale to last a long time. What am I doing? In this case, I'm saying that I'm in quite a difficult situation because I want the boots, but I cannot afford to buy them. So I am waiting for something that I really want. I'm waiting for my situation to get better. I'm not accepting what I have now. I'm waiting for something better. For example, I thought you were going to quit your job. Yeah, I am, but I'm holding out for the end of year bonus. Then I'll quit. So my point here is that you cannot just learn one phrasal verb and think, yes, now I know it. Because we might have very similar phrasal verbs that have different meanings. So all you have to do is really focus on the situation, the context that it's being used in, and that's going to help you determine what the meaning is, just like you do with lots of other vocabulary. Okay, let's continue expanding your vocabulary, this time by looking at something more formal. So, what is a more formal way of saying food? Any ideas? We could say, this man is providing sustenance to the monkeys. So this comes from the verb to sustain. So I immediately get the idea that this food is going to keep me alive, but it might not be very delicious. And if you're thinking, Anisa, does anyone really use this word? Yes, I use this word when I am really hungry, when I am hangry, and I say, I need sustenance. Give me sustenance. I don't care what it is. Just feed me. I'm really hungry. But of course, you would definitely be able to use this if you're doing an IELTS, an FC, a CAE exam, because it is a lovely, more formal term. So make a note of it. Keep it in mind. Very useful. So the first use of the ing form is continuous tenses for that long duration. Now let's take a look at the second use of ing. And to do that, we're going to go back and look at the photo. Take a look at it. Do you think this is a sign of kindness? You might be saying yes, or maybe you're giving me a nice full sentence saying, yes, this is a sign of kindness. Great. But look at that sentence. What is this? What does that word represent? Well, we're talking about what the man is doing, right? We're saying the action of feeding the monkeys. That is what is a symbol of kindness, a sign of kindness. We're going to come back to this in a minute. Keep this in mind. So I'd like you to take a look at 3 sentences now, and I'd like you to think, what is the subject, what is the verb, and what is the object in each sentence. Don't worry if you're not 100% sure on the meaning of all the vocabulary, because right now we're just focusing on the structure of the sentence. So, number 1, offering the monkeys food is a sign of kindness. Number 2, eating bread hopefully satiated their hunger. And number 3, showing compassion to other living creatures is a testament to this man's character. So, can you identify the subject, the verb, and the object in each sentence? Pause and think about it. So, how did you do? Actually, I was very helpful, but you might not have realized it. I asked you to identify the subject, the verb, and the object because that is the order that English follows. It is an SVO language. So, if you find the main verb in a sentence, then you know that the subject is before it and the object, the blah, 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 the extra, is after it. So, offering the monkeys food is a sign of kindness. So offering the monkeys food, that is the whole subject. And we know that we need to have a noun as a subject, which means that ing word at the beginning, it's not a verb anymore. Now it's a noun, which is what we call a gerund. So a gerund is when a verb is acting like a noun. It's taking the role of a noun in the sentence. It might be as the subject, it might be as the object, but it's a noun. Let's take a look at some more examples. Let's take a look at a shorter example. Football is Bob's hobby. Noun is noun. Okay. Bob's hobby is football. Exactly the same meaning. So it's clear that football is the noun, and both of these sentences are correct. But what about football is his hobby? Using a gerund allows us to be more specific about the aspect of football. We can make that distinction between playing football, coaching football, or maybe just watching football on TV. So without using a gerund, we don't really know what Bob is interested in. Now, don't forget that a gerund is a singular item. So it takes the third person singular verb. Think about it like it. So reading helps learners expand their range of vocabulary. Or playing video games is John's hobby. It doesn't matter that there are lots of different games that he plays, because that whole noun phrase, playing video games, is singular. Of course, if you've got different activities, then it becomes plural. For example, drawing and swimming, two activities, are Mike's hobbies. Or skimming and scanning help students find the correct answers in reading exams. Two different actions. So we're really saying the action of reading, the action of playing video games, the action of. That's what the gerund does. It allows us to focus on that. Okay, great. Now I think a little bit of practice is needed. So let's consider this from the point of view of a work situation. Imagine that you are in an interview, a job interview, and the interviewer asks, what was your main responsibility in your previous position? Now, we could use a noun for this, and I could say, client retention was my main responsibility. Or we could use a gerund to focus on the action of doing this. So, retaining clients was my main responsibility. Or you can flip it around and say, well, my main responsibility was retaining clients, but I was also involved in da, 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 da. And you can add some extra detail. So, what was your main responsibility? Now, of course, gerunds are nouns, so they can go into sentences with any verb tense. We've looked at present, we've looked at past, so now, my favorite verb tense, the present perfect. What has been your biggest achievement so far? You can consider this from a professional point of view or just in life in general. So, what has been your biggest achievement? Use a gerund for this. Tell me in the comments. I'm curious. So, the ing form can be used in those continuous structures. It can also be used as a noun. And now we're looking at the third use. So take a look at these questions. Are you scared of monkeys? Or do you think they're cute? Would you be interested in feeding monkeys like this? Or would you be nervous about being so close to wild animals? Now, you've probably heard the rule that we always use nouns after prepositions. Scared of monkeys. And we just mentioned that gerunds are used as nouns. So we could say, interested in feeding monkeys, nervous about being so close to them. It's following the same rules that we just talked about. Remember, English is like building blocks. Once you learn one rule, don't forget about it, because you might need it for another type of structure. Now let's look at some general examples. I'm scared of dark alleys. That's that really narrow passageway from one road to another road, squeezed in between buildings. So I'm scared of dark alleys. So we just mentioned that gerunds are nouns. Prepositions need to have a noun. And these gerunds are giving more specific, detailed information. So I'm scared of dark alleys. But more specifically, I'm scared of walking down a dark alley at night when I'm alone. So it's the action of doing this that scares me. I can watch a movie that contains dark alleys as the scenery. I don't get scared. But when I'm in that situation myself, yes, I feel scared. So another example is a lot of people are scared of flying. They're not scared of planes. They're scared of being in a plane when the plane is 30,000 feet in the air. Actually, quite understandable when you think about it like that. So remember, you're always going to look at the question and you're going to copy that same structure in your answer. So, your turn. Answer the following questions. What's the first thing you do after waking up in the morning? And what's the last thing you do before going to sleep at night? So we have already seen 3 of the main uses of the ing form. Take a look at this passage and see if you can identify them. We have recently been thinking about expanding our team. Recruiting experts who are good at collaborating with others is our top priority. For this reason, before being offered a formal offer of employment, candidates are invited to meet with some of the colleagues they will be working with. So, first of all, can you identify the continuous verb tenses? We have been thinking. They will be working. Those are continuous forms. Present perfect continuous and future continuous. What about a gerund that is the subject of the sentence? Did you find that? Recruiting people, recruiting experts. That was our subject. It was a noun, right? The action of recruiting. And what about the gerunds that come after a preposition? How many can you find? So we have been thinking about expanding. We want people who are good at collaborating. And before being offered a formal contract. So there you have it. We have got 3 different uses of ing. Now let's look at some more. Now, the 4th use of the ing form is one that you're probably not going to like, but let's take a look at 3 sentences as examples. Most places don't advise feeding the animals. You should avoid getting too close to wild animals. And I'm sure the monkeys appreciate being given food. Okay, so what do we have here? We have got 2 verbs that are next to each other. Now, in this case, we're talking about verb patterns because the first verb controls the form of the second verb. Is it going to be a verb plus an infinitive or a verb plus a gerund, that ing form? Well, yeah, those are our options. How do you know which verb form to use? Are there any rules? Well, yes and no. So you can look up that first verb in a dictionary and it will tell you the verb pattern. It will say it must be followed by an infinitive. It must be followed by a gerund, or maybe it's flexible, but you need to check every verb. Really? Really, Anisa? Is that your advice? Look up every word in a dictionary? Okay, well, there are some other things that you can do. I suggest paying more attention to combinations of verbs when you're reading. Then practice making your own sentences. Of course, some verbs such as enjoy, you already know, because I enjoy to watch movies hopefully doesn't sound as good as I enjoy watching movies. However, if you don't recall using a verb before, then you should consider verifying the verb pattern in a dictionary. Did you see what I did there? Take a look. Take a look at all those examples that you've got. That's what I mean by paying more attention when you're reading. Oh, I'm so helpful. Okay, so the fourth way that we use the gerund form is just after certain verbs, and you don't really know what those verbs are because there is a very, very, very long list. So it's just a question of becoming more aware of what you're reading and what you're listening to. But the fifth way that we use it is a little bit easier. So take a look at the man in the picture. First, how would you describe him? Tall, kind, late, altruistic, generous, married, considerate, brave, caring, helpful, wasteful, funny? Take a minute and think, which of those words would you use to describe the man in the picture? Okay, hopefully you have chosen a few of those words to describe him. Let's take a look at them together. So, tall. I have no idea if he's tall. If you said yes, okay, you're very creative. I have no idea. Kind. Sure, I think he's engaged in an act of kindness at the moment, so he's probably a kind man in general. Yeah. Late. Well, why do you think he's late? Maybe he stopped to feed the monkeys on the way to work or on the way home, and now he's going to be late. Okay, but we have no real idea if that's true. It is a total stab in the dark. A complete guess that's not based on any evidence. What about altruistic? Altruistic. This is a great word meaning you're helping others even if it puts you at a disadvantage. So, what do you think? Does it describe this man? Yeah, I'd say he's doing something very nice, so it could be a good term for him. Generous. Well, he's sharing something that he could eat himself with those animals, so he is not being selfish. I would say he's generous. Married. I have no idea. I don't see a wedding band, but that doesn't mean that he isn't married. Oh, lots of negatives in that. I don't see a wedding band, but that doesn't mean that he's not married. So it could mean that he might be married. Remember, when you've got two negatives, it doesn't make it more negative. Two negatives become a positive. Considerate. This means kind and helpful, which is very similar to altruistic, so that works. Brave. Well, this is an interesting one. Did you say yes to this? Because if you said yes, then that would indicate to me that you are a little bit nervous around monkeys or you're scared of being so close to them. So in your opinion, it takes bravery to be in this position. So it is a good description if it matches your feelings. Caring. Again, this is similar to considerate and altruistic, and we've already determined that those are good choices. So yeah, he's caring. Helpful. Again, another word that is similar to considerate. But you know, everything is about points of view. So if his wife sent him off to the shop to bring home some bread for dinner this evening, and he's actually feeding that bread to the monkeys, well then, from his wife's point of view, he's not being very helpful. Wasteful. This is another opportunity for you to give me your opinion here. So, do you think that this is a good way of using bread? Or do you think he is wasting the bread by giving it to animals? And the last one, funny. I have no idea if this guy is funny or not. He might be, who knows? Okay, so I'm sure you guys realized that all of those words were adjectives because we were describing the man. And did you spot the ing word? Caring. Okay, so use number 5 of the ing form is it could be an adjective. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as that because there are different types of adjectives. So stay with me because we're going to look at this and it is important. I say that about everything, but so many things are important when you're learning a language because you do not want to accidentally say something that you don't mean to say. So let's take a look together. So I'm now going to explain that the present participle adjective can be used in 3 different ways. And the first one is when we are talking about the cause of a feeling. This is the easiest one that I'm sure you use a lot. For example, how do you feel when you read an interesting book? You feel interested. Okay, how do you feel when you hear a frightening story? You might feel frightened. Why? Why do I get confused by algebra problems? Because algebra is confusing. It makes me feel confused. What annoys you? What annoys you in life? Annoying examples annoy me. They make me feel annoyed. All right, I will stop. But you see what we're doing. We are taking a verb, to annoy, to interest, to frighten, and we're making 2 different adjectives. The past participle adjective, that is the result, the feeling. I feel annoyed, interested, bored. And the present participle adjective, that is causing that feeling. So the book is interesting, the story is frightening, the algebra problems are confusing. It is causing the feeling. Anisa, please don't give me any more annoying examples. Well, I have to, because it is not just for feelings. It's the cause of any results. What do I mean? Well, for example, if you have an egg and you put an egg in boiling water, what do you get? What happens? What's the result? You get a boiled egg, right? Because the boiling water causes that result. So what about if you take another egg and you put it in a frying pan? What type of egg are you going to get as a result? You get a fried egg. Okay, so it is causing that result. Okay, but let's consider that boiling water from another point of view. Is that water always going to be boiling? Well, no, of course not. If I turn off the stove, the water is going to cool down and it will stop boiling. So what about being on a plane? Have you ever been unlucky enough to sit next to a crying baby, a screaming baby on a plane? Is that baby going to scream forever? Well, in my experience, they normally stop crying about 5 minutes after the plane has landed, but eventually, the child stops. So we're looking at this adjective to say this is a temporary action. This child is not going to scream forever. The water is not going to boil forever. Oh, look at the bird. Which bird? The flying bird. Look at the flying bird. Hey, so it is not going to fly forever, but at this precise moment, I can describe it like that. Okay, so now let's go back to the frying pan. Now, for all my cooks and chefs out there, would you use a frying pan to make soup? Would you use it to barbecue chicken? No, of course not. It is a frying pan. You use it to fry things when you want to cook fried food. That is the purpose of the pan, to fry things. So let's take a look at a few more examples here. What type of shoes would you wear to go on a hike in the mountains? You're probably looking at the hiking boots, right? And saying, well, Anisa, if I want to go hiking, I need hiking boots. That is the purpose. They were designed for this reason. So they are going to be the best choice. What about this man? What type of stick does he need? Would you give him a hockey stick? A wood stick from a tree? Or a walking stick? It looks like he could benefit from a walking stick. So it's a stick specifically designed for the purpose of helping somebody walk. All right, what about the files in your office? The actual paper files, not the digital files, the hard copy files. Where are they kept? In a cupboard? In a closet? Or in a filing cabinet? That is why the cabinet was designed. It's specifically got the right size space for files. It is a filing cabinet. So just keep in mind that we have got 3 different ways to use the ing adjectives. Are we describing the cause of something? Are we describing something that is temporary? Or are we describing the purpose of something? I told you it wasn't that easy. So we have looked at 5 different uses of the ing form. Can you identify how the ing is being used in these sentences? So, he is sitting on a step and feeding 2 monkeys. He appears to be a caring man because sharing food with others is an act of kindness. Pause and think about this. In the first sentence, he is sitting on a step and feeding 2 monkeys. Both of those are verbs. They are continuous verbs. He's not going to be sitting there forever and feeding them forever, but at this moment, he is sitting and he is feeding. Remember, when we are looking at photos and describing what's happening in a photo, we use the continuous tense. That's our normal default tense. In the second sentence, he appears to be a caring man because sharing food with others is an act of kindness. So that first ing, a caring man, it's the adjective. We are describing him. And the second one, sharing food with others, is an act of kindness. We're using that as the subject. So it's a gerund, it's a noun. I hope you're getting a little bit better at this. Let's take a look at the next use of the ing form. Okay, so for our last focus point today, let's consider the sentence, a man sitting on a step is holding out some food for 2 monkeys to eat. Now, there are 2 ing forms in this, so take a minute, think about it. And if you've watched any of my other videos, think about those as well, because they'll probably help. Did you get it? Do you know how we are using these 2 different forms? Well, it's the same form, but 2 different ways. So, a man is holding out some food. That is our basic sentence. A man is holding out some food. Subject, verb, object. But then I wanted to add some description, some extra information about the man. So, a man who is sitting on a step, lovely relative clause to describe him, is holding out some food. But then I reduced it by removing the relative pronoun and the auxiliary verb. And we get a man sitting on a step is holding out some food for two monkeys to eat. Now, I should point out that this doesn't work with the passive voice, only in the active voice, and only because that man is doing the action of sitting. So he is connected to that verb. That's why we can reduce it. I talk about this a lot in my other videos. Let's take a look at 3 other sentences, and I'd like you to pause this video and see if you can or reduce those relative clauses. The HR manager who is leaving at the end of this month will be replaced by Bob. Bob is in all my examples. Number 2, the mugs that are sitting on the kitchen table are for the use of all staff members. And number 3, Mr. Clarkson attended a product pitch by a team that was wearing lion costumes. Okay, so think about it. How would you reduce those? Okay, and hopefully you have removed the relative pronoun and the auxiliary. So we end up with the HR manager leaving at the end of this month will be replaced by Bob. The mugs sitting on the kitchen table are for the use of all staff members. Mr. Clarkson attended a product pitch by a team wearing lion costumes. Weird. Okay, if you did not do the quiz right at the beginning, then pause this video and think about what we have just covered. Can you find the different ways that we are using the ing form? Pause and think if you haven't already done it. Okay, let's take a look at the sentences that we used at the beginning of this video in that little quiz, and hopefully now you should be able to identify how that ing form is being used. So let's start off with verbs. Bob is walking. It's happening right now. It's the present continuous. I was walking back from the supermarket when I realized I'd left my bank card in the self-service checkout machine, so I had to walk all the way back to collect it. True story. We had been walking around in circles for almost an hour when we finally found the souvenir shop that had been recommended to us. Okay, so those are all ing forms of a verb, continuous verb. And the second use that we looked at was taking that ing and turning it into a noun or a gerund so that we could use it as the subject of our sentence. It can also be the object as well, but here, did you find one that is the subject? Walking is a good form of exercise. So it's at the beginning of the sentence, it's our subject, we need a noun, and there it is, it's a gerund form. So now, did you find any gerunds that are following a preposition? I'm keen on walking as a way of staying active. I've actually got 2 in the same sentence. Keen on walking as a way of staying. 2 in one sentence. All right, so now what about that horrible verb pattern with one verb being followed by a gerund? Did you find that? The doctor suggested walking as it is low impact and doesn't require any specialized equipment. What about adjectives? Did you find the ing adjectives? Carla bought a walking stick to help her elderly grandfather get about a bit more easily. So we already used that example earlier in the video. I hope you found that. Walking stick. And I plan to go on a walking tour of Paris when I visit next month. So I'm describing the tour that I'm going on. It is a walking tour. All right, what about our relative clauses? Did you find any that had been reduced? The postman, walking up to the door, suddenly noticed the large dog dozing on the front porch. We've actually got two in here. So the postman who was walking and the dog who was dozing. Dozing just means when you're in a light sleep and you could wake up at any moment. As I was sitting at a cafe, that's my verb, I smiled at a woman who was walking her dog. Aha, now I've actually got a reduced relative clause in that second part. Wow, another long video, but I hope you found all of my examples helpful and you've got a good idea now of the 6 different ways that we can use that ing form. So if you're reading something and you get a little bit confused, well, stop, take a minute, look at it. Is it a noun? Is it a verb? Is it an adjective? What is happening in the context of that sentence or that paragraph? If you've liked this video, fantastic, let me know, and of course share with your friends. If you're not subscribed already, I'd love it if you could subscribe so that you don't miss my future videos. And of course, I will see you in the next one.